Bullshit! Bullshit! Bullshit, 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 bullshit! Bullshit! Bullshit, 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 bullshit! 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 Bull, 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 bull. Shit, 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 shit. Bullshit, 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 bullshit.
Is that all I'm ever gonna get from you guys? Bullshit?
Bad movies have developed their own sort of currency of nomenclature. Certain key elements can tip a coin toss concept, taking it from meh to holy shit, like a Bizarro World star system. Dungeon Siege, Uwe Ball directs epic fantasy with Jason Statham, Ron Perlman, John Rhys-Davies, and Burt Reynolds. The Conqueror, John Wayne as Genghis Khan, in a production which may have given everyone cancer. The Last Shark, a Jaws ripoff. So blatant it was successfully pulled from American theaters. Let My Puppets Come, a loving tribute to the Muppets. Loving here meaning X-rated. Each element acts like a slung-back shot of I have to see this shit, lowering your audience inhibitions, which is why it's so weird to me that The Return of Captain Invincible took almost 20 years from its shaky release to experience a long-overdue resurgence, despite being The Return of Captain Invincible, an Australian exploitation superhero comedy musical starring Alan Arkin and Christopher Lee with songs by the musical duo from Rocky Horror, and a movie that was way ahead of its time, in my opinion. Made during the 2-decade surge of Ozploitation movies that began with the introduction of the R rating in 1971, it was already easy to get lost in the bloody sexy mess. Probably didn't help that the North American distributor went out of business days before it was set to be released. And it was the subject of a series of lengthy court cases around whether it could be classified as an Australian film. That can't have been good. So it limped into limited domestic release and did very limited domestic business. Eventually it collapsed onto VHS, crawled onto Laserdisc, and putrefied onto DVD. It's finally started getting the post-mortem reputation it deserves in quantity, if not quality. People push it as a curiosity, a weird mashup of genres with some standout absurd scenes. And even Terry Pratchett, maybe its only celebrity endorser, tempers his praise, calling it a series of bad moments pasted together with great songs and a budget of fourpence. I've never heard Terry Pratchett's voice. And it's easy to see it as another bit of inevitable fallout from Superman's big screen success that just happened to get a little freaky. It was the first time superheroes had been in theatrical vogue since the 1940s, but occupying that brief period, Captain Invincible tackled themes that wouldn't reappear in superhero movies until the new millennium. Parodies of the genre were almost unheard of and mostly mined superficialities. Mystery Men similarly got the shaft, despite arguably being ahead of its time, blazing the trail 3 years ahead of Spider-Man. But again, while it put heroes and villains in novel contexts, the end result was a brilliantly funny, but ultimately superficial take. And of course, the postmodern 1-2 punch of Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns in 1986 made any recontextualizing of superheroes seem sorta redundant. But Captain Invincible predated all that, and keep that in mind. The issues it tackles may not be profound, but they can be traced to what even now we think of as subversive takes on the concept. The film opens on well-trodden ground. Captain Invincible is in his prime, whacking wise guys in New York, lambasting the Luftwaffe, and scoring brownie points with the Boy Scouts.
And what are you going to be when you grow up, son?
I want to be just like you, Captain.
Well, that just might not be possible.
Oh, well, I'll just have to be President of the United States.
A very fine ambition, lad. When you do get to be president, you can feel free to call on me anytime you like.
But the apple pie Americana is about to go deep south. It's iron curtains for the captain as McCarthyism targets his communist cape color, unsanctioned use of military rank, and wearing underwear in public. Any of this ringing a bell? I've heard, but can't verify, that this idea is more than a conceptual forerunner and that Brad Bird openly acknowledged the influence. 5 minutes in, the captain is exiled to Australia and we're a hemisphere away from the stereotype superhero story. Rather than selflessly continuing to crusade, he embraces extradition with inebriation and winds up a homeless drunk. Again, familiar? I'm not suggesting that Hancock and the Incredibles poached their material or anything so dramatic. Taking a concept as classically pure as a superhero and inverting it isn't exactly a one-in-a-million idea, but Captain Invincible deserves credit for predating the cultural consciousness around subversive superheroes. The American government's secret hypno-ray is stolen by the Captain's old arch-nemesis, Mr. Midnight, played to usual perfection by Christopher Lee.
Streit uns Wände der Feinde. Dies ist euch Held, denn mich schaffet Julius. Julius! stop thundering about. Oi-ho!
Immediate suggestions of military action and nuclear strikes are dismissed by a president who seems to be clinging to the pre-extradition world that Cap thrived in. To that end, he offers an unconventional solution.
What the world needs now is a shining hero. What the world needs now is a glory man who will fly down and save the day. What the world needs now is a hero to help us through.
Oh, it's so tough not to just let the song play through. And it represents something critical. This guy has no plan, just a childlike belief that the hero figure will make everything okay. Midnight, on the other hand, does have a plan, convoluted and calamitous. Dog poop and graffiti degentrify ethnic neighborhoods and entice residents to his waterfront developments, which controlled demolitions will detach from the mainland, leaving a racially purified New York. And for the holdouts, Hypno-Ray. McCarthy forced out Cap for his cape color, now Midnight's following suit with skin. G-Men, aided by Australian policewoman Patricia, track Mr. Invincible down, and she tries unsuccessfully to pull him out of rum-soaked retirement, resulting in a soulful number by Arkin that sums up the subversive context.
The good guys and the bad guys, it's amazing how much they're alike. They both act sincere, but they're so filled with fear, they switch sides in the wink of an eye.
It wasn't the act of extradition, but the implications that ruined him. The black and white morality of Nazi aggressors became the full spectrum of the Cold War. Heroes aren't equipped with a superhuman ability to suss out moral gray areas, and without a larger-than-life enemy to equal them, they are lost. Patty can't convince him, but the president has better luck when he reveals that he was the Boy Scout from the newsreel intro. You couldn't ask for a more poignant pro-idealism proof. From a single instant of holdout hero worship, Captain Invincible is hooked back into the saddle. It's worth noting here how much Alan Arkin brings to his character. Director Philip Morris seems to have no upper limit for absurdity, and the movie is loaded with sight gags and terrible puns, both of which I am all for, but Arkin was smart enough to counterpoint them with an understated performance, all the better for its contrast. When he finally agrees to help, it is perfect. Likewise, playing off Patty's more performative delivery.
Do you know what you've done? Have you any idea? You've thrown my whole career out the window along with me.
No, I didn't.
And reacting to her jilted Jewish accent.
Coleslaw and a half a pound of nolka.
Coming up.
Trouble is, in the years of exile, the captain's gone impotent in credible wise. An increasingly disillusioned government watches him haplessly try to regain use of flight, magnetism, and an amazing computer brain. It's Patty's emotional support that finally prevails, but by that point, word of the captain's recovery has reached Midnight, and he uses sleeper agents to incriminate our heroes in an attack on the government's Australian base of operations. Again, an unconventional attack, not perpetrated outright by eminently ass-kickable henchmen. Midnight is out to take Cap's hero status, not his life, and he does so using inside men, further driving the themes of murky morality. Now on the run from the law, Cap identifies the perpetrator, and the idea thrills him into a cross-hemisphere duet that might as well be Christopher Lee's theme song.
Long before the great Big Bang, there was evil in the void. Long before the first bird sang, evil was enjoyed.
Long before the dawn of man, there was born an evil plan. Believe me when I say that there's no other side to midnight. Now I'm gonna keep my grip tight.
I'm going to take a big bite.
Gonna get a big fight, Mr. Evil Midnight. Mr.
This is the first time we've seen any real aggressive emotional response from Captain Invincible, and no wonder. An enemy like Midnight is exactly what he needs, an irredeemable iconoclast in need of Jungian justice. Cap and Patty fly to New York, where he takes residence at his old base of operations inside the Statue of Liberty. Surrounded by mementos of his lost life, he declares that taking down Midnight will be his last heroic act.
I'm just gonna sit up here in Miss Liberty and wait for 1950 to come around again. And with it, Jack Dempsey, the Polo Grounds, the NBC Blue Network, Harry God bless him Truman, and maybe when hell freezes over, some good old-fashioned pride in this country.
Investigating an innocent deli explodes into a prop-heavy shootout that ends with Cap dropping into Midnight's underground lair. After an all-too-short henchman brawl, the two come face-to-face, but Midnight is ready with a well-stocked bar of Invincible's kryptonite, and the head and shoulders showstopper of the movie's musical numbers.
Be a big shot with a bull shot. Be a swine, meet a pine. Have a shot or a port or a snort of any sort. Asti spumante, uno chianti. Arti fine. I got some economic hawks, a gin and tonic on the rocks, where angels fear to tread. I say, choose your booze, let's hit the red eye!
Cap is at his mercy until Patty manages to broadcast a bit of nostalgia through to him. Carrying the weight of the world one last time, he crushes Midnight and deftly undoes his controlled demolition before delivering a final uplifting patriotic speech to the cheering crowds of New York City. The Return of Captain Invincible inverts a common problem. It is smarter than it thinks it is. On the one hand, this keeps it from being the slightest bit preachy or self-satisfied, but on the other, it seems to make it unwilling to provide solid closure to its themes. Mr. Midnight, despite the underhanded tactics, doesn't provide Cap with a challenge, physically or morally. His penchant for racial purification, beyond a passing resemblance to knee-jerk McCarthyism, is just a generically evil motivation. Bringing back a nemesis from Cap's past is counterproductive because that's what he wants. The villain could have still been as bombastically diabolical, but he should have come to that point through subversive means. He could have been a double agent in a high government position, for example. The one time Midnight does get the upper hand is by using Cap's drinking problem, which is a great element that doesn't mesh. What does drinking have to do with anything? Like Midnight's generic evil, it's a generic way to forget and cope, but making it the penultimate test of moral resolve lends more weight to it than it deserved. I can't in good conscience recommend any changes that would remove choose your poison, but creating an impossible moral choice for Cap would have been a much stronger conclusive moment. The flippant absurdity to the exclusion of any thematic relevance is probably best summed up in a shoe-in origin story in which a group of aliens masturbates while watching Cap's parents having sex and transmit reproductive material into his mother. It's clearly intended as pure what the fuck, robbing a defining superhero moment of any meaning. And all of this is almost an afterthought to the real element of sabotage, the pacing, which drags considerably through the second act. There are so many standout individual ideas perpetrated, I'm assuming, by the shameless absurdity of Philip Mora. Operation Canine Feces has dog poop flopping out of mini doghouses. Midnight is given an inexplicable alien cohort and an unintelligible French butler.
So, our gallant captain has finally arrived.
Wait. What? Because I'll shoot you and what you make us gonna want to swim.
I see. Into the deli, down the chute, and into the garbage. Very appropriate. And then...
Not to mention a pet buzzard.
Open wider, you silly boy.
Who he winds up cooking.
Alas, poor Schultz. I knew him well, Julius.
And action scenes are filled with vicious vacuum cleaners and gefilte fish guns, not to mention heroically brash use of puns.
This really sucks.
But for a superhero movie, it just doesn't have enough action or momentum. Both action bits before the climax are simple ideas, poorly staged, which live out their humor value long before they cut away. When vacuums attack, we hang endlessly on them. When the shootout in the deli becomes a pie fight, the joke is beaten further into the ground than Midnight's lair. And in between this, a lot of content that should have been rapid-fire joke barrage gets similarly taxed, most notably Cap's regaining of his powers. A perfect opportunity for frantic pace and visual gags, but nearly every idea just sits there instead. From the point where Cap decides to return through to his arriving in New York, there's a black hole occupied sparsely by regaining powers and developing Cap and Patty's relationship, but it just becomes listless and dull. And yet, I'm making an assumption here, Mora also brought in stuff like this.
Into the blue!
Well, that was really the pits.
It's really tough to objectively place the movie because so many moments and ideas it has are really stand out brilliant, but they're set against this sea of blasé. I can watch Lee sing Choose Your Poison endlessly, likewise Arkin's unnecessarily nuanced performance, but to recommend the movie to anyone means also recommending the in-between bits, the plotting pace, and the unfocused second act, knowing that appreciating what I think are its prescient ideas requires a lot of work on your part. The movie, to its credit, seems to have no idea that it's being subversive or forward-thinking. It's just a silly comedy about a drunken superhero with some Cold War undercurrents. But even if watching it for pure entertainment value is a stretch, I still think it deserves much more credit than it gets. It's not just an oddity of genre matchup. It represents an early effort to do what we take for granted now. Take the superhero concept and pair it with postmodern circumstances.